The photograph was weathered, its edges frayed like the memories it contained. Emma's fingers traced the creased surface, following the outline of her father's younger self, a man she knew only through stories, scars, and this single moment captured in time. The image showed a group of soldiers, their faces etched with a mixture of exhaustion and defiance, standing against a backdrop of scorched earth and distant mountains that seemed to swallow the horizon. Rafael Rodriguez rarely spoke about his time in the service. But on nights like these, with the Texas wind whispering against the old ranch house windows, something would shift in his eyes. A story would escape, reluctantly at first, then with a gathering momentum that pulled Emma into worlds she had never known. "It's not about the glory," he'd say, his voice a low rumble that seemed to emerge from somewhere deep and immovable. "It's about the person next to you, the one who'll drag you out when everything goes to hell." The ranch was a world unto itself, a sprawling testament to her family's resilience. Her mother, Elena, had been a teacher in the small border town of Presidio, a woman whose quiet strength was the counterpoint to her husband's raw military precision. She understood the cost of service, had watched countless young men and women leave their hometown, some returning changed, some not returning at all. Emma's childhood was a delicate balance between two worlds. Mornings began before sunrise, with ranch chores that demanded as much discipline as any military training. She learned to repair fences with the same attention to detail her father applied to cleaning his service weapons. She understood mechanics through the language of tractors and well pumps, developing a mechanical intuition that would later serve her in ways she couldn't yet imagine. But it was the stories that truly shaped her. Raphael's medals hung in a simple wooden case in his study, not as trophies, but as memorials. Each represented something more than achievement. They were fragments of moments that had defined not just a soldier, but a human being pushed to impossible limits. "See this one?" he'd say, pointing to a silver star. "This isn't about what I did. This is about what we did. About keeping each other alive when the world wanted us dead." The wars her father spoke of were not distant conflicts. They were living, breathing narratives that inhabited their home like another family member. Afghanistan, Iraq, the kind of places that existed more as concepts of chaos and survival than as actual geographical locations. By the time Emma was 12, she could field strip a rifle with her eyes closed, not because her father pushed her, but because understanding became a form of love in their household. Military history wasn't just academic, it was personal. Each book in their library was annotated, each documentary watched with a critical eye that saw beyond the official narratives. Her mother watched this evolution with a mixture of pride and quiet concern. Elena Rodriguez knew the price of service. She had seen generations of border town families send their children into conflict, watching some return whole, others return broken, and some not return at all. "You don't choose this life," Elena would tell her daughter. "This life chooses you." The turning point came on her 13th birthday. Instead of the typical teenage gifts, clothes, electronics, the ephemeral desires of adolescence, her father presented her with something different. A worn journal, its leather cover, cracked and faded, filled with handwritten notes from his deployments. "These are the stories they don't put in history books," Raphael said, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "The moments between survival and surrender. The humanity that exists in the most inhuman conditions." That night, Emma read the journal. By flashlight, her world expanding with each carefully inscribed page. It wasn't just a record of military operations. It was a testament to human resilience, to the intricate connections that form when individuals are pushed to their absolute limits. She understood then that her path would not be traditional. The ranch, with its wide open spaces and generational roots, would not be enough. The military wasn't just a career option. It was a calling that resonated in her very bones. The Apache helicopter became her first true love. Not the machine itself, but what it represented. Mobility, power, the ability to protect those on the ground with a precision that bordered on the surgical. While other teenage girls decorated their rooms with pop star posters, Emma's walls were covered with technical diagrams of military aircraft. Her bookshelf, a meticulous archive of aviation. History. Her father never pushed, but he watched. And in his watching, there was a recognition. A understanding that his daughter was not just inheriting a family legacy, but was about to redefine it. The sky, Raphael would tell her, doesn't care about gender. It only cares about skill. By the time she graduated high school, Emma Rodriguez was not just a student. She was a mission. A living, breathing embodiment of a dream that had been generations in the making. The border town of Presidio had seen many children leave, but none quite like her. The mountains were waiting. The sky was calling. And Emma was ready to answer. The first day at West Point felt like walking into the eye of a storm. Emma Rodriguez stood among 1,200 cadets, each one a carefully selected piece of human potential, waiting to be forged or broken. The granite buildings loomed like ancient sentinels watching generations of warriors take their first steps into legend. Reveille cut through the pre-dawn darkness at 5 a.m. No mercy, no exceptions. The first lesson of West Point was simple. Survival is a choice you make every single moment. Her fellow cadets came from every corner of America, farm kids from Kansas, city boys from New York, rural teenagers from small towns like her own Presidio. But Emma was different. Where others saw an opportunity, she saw a battlefield. Where? They saw a challenge. She saw a chance to rewrite expectations. The physical training was brutal by design. The obstacle courses were crafted to push you in limits, to separate those who could adapt from those who would break. Emma's ranch background gave her an edge. Years of manual labor had built a foundation of strength that went beyond mere muscle. She moved with a purpose that caught the attention of her instructors. Major Thomas Garrett, a decorated veteran with steel-gray eyes and a reputation for ruthlessness, watched her during early morning PT sessions. He'd seen countless cadets come and go, but there was something different about Rodriguez. She didn't just complete the exercises, she attacked them. Most of you think you're here to become soldiers, Garrett would bark during their early morning formations. You're wrong. You're here to become something more than human. You're here to become a weapon of your country's will. The academic challenges were equally unforgiving. West Point wasn't just about physical endurance. It was an intellectual crucible. Emma's curriculum was a grueling mix of engineering, military strategy, leadership theory, and physical training that consumed every waking moment. Calculus blended into battlefield tactics. Physics lectures seamlessly transitioned into combat simulation exercises. Her dream of becoming an Apache pilot meant she had to be exceptional in every single domain. The aviation program was notoriously competitive, with slots more limited than Special Forces recruitment. For every 100 cadets who dreamed of flying, fewer than 5 would ultimately earn their wings. The whispers followed her everywhere. Some were subtle, others less so. A woman in combat aviation? Good luck with that. The old guard of the military establishment hadn't fully embraced the changing landscape of warfare. Emma became acutely aware that she wasn't just fighting to become a pilot, she was fighting to prove a point. Night after night, when other cadets collapsed from exhaustion, Emma would be in the study halls. Her father's journal now, carefully preserved and occasionally referenced, reminded her that excellence was the only language that truly spoke in the military. Her breakthrough came during advanced tactical simulation that pushed every cadet to their absolute limit. a complex scenario involving multi-terrain rescue operations. The exercise was designed to test not just individual skills, but team dynamics under extreme pressure. While her teammates struggled with communication and coordination, Emma emerged as a natural leader. Her approach wasn't about dominance, but about understanding. She listened more than she spoke, analyzed before she acted. When the simulation ended, she had not just completed the mission, she had reimagined how it could be executed. Major Garrett called her into his office after the exercise. The walls were covered with maps, photographs of past operations, the kind of room that breathed military history. "Rodriguez," he said, his voice a controlled growl, "you're not just another cadet trying to get through the program. You're trying to redefine it." It wasn't a question, it was an observation. Lee. Path to becoming an Apache pilot was more than just technical training. It was a psychological war zone. Every system, every mechanical component became an extension of her own capabilities. She studied helicopter dynamics with the same intensity that a surgeon might study human anatomy. Her classmates began to see her differently. The initial skepticism transformed into a grudging respect. During field exercises, when equipment failed or conditions became impossible, Rodriguez found solutions. She wasn't just adapting, she was evolving. The Apache wasn't just a machine to her. It was a promise, a commitment to protection, a mathematical equation of speed, precision, and human will. She understood something fundamental that many of her instructors had forgotten. Technology was nothing without the human spirit driving it. By her final year, Emma had become more than a cadet. She was a statement, a living challenge to every outdated notion about women in combat roles. Her performance wasn't just excellent, it was transformative. When graduation approached, Major Garrett pulled her aside one last time. "The sky doesn't care about your gender," he said, echoing words she had heard from her father years ago. "It only cares about your skill." Emma Rodriguez was ready. The mountains were waiting. The Apache was calling, and she would answer with everything she had. The forward operating base was nothing like the sanitized training scenarios at West Point. Here, reality bled through every crevice, dust that found its way into every piece of equipment. The constant low hum of generators, the razor-thin line between routine and chaos. Emma Rodriguez arrived with the weight of expectations her own, her family's, and those of every woman who had been told she didn't belong in combat aviation. Her Apache wasn't just a machine. It was her statement, her weapon, her promise. The 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, known as the Night Stalkers, was legendary. They were the ghosts of modern warfare, the airborne guardians who flew where others feared to navigate. Integration wasn't just about proving technical skill. It was about earning trust in an environment where trust meant survival. Lieutenant Mike Ramirez spotted her first during her initial briefing. He'd seen plenty of fresh pilots come through, but Rodriguez was different. There was a stillness about her, a calculated precision that spoke of something deeper than mere training. "You're the Apache pilot," he said, more statement than question. The first time they spoke, his eyes were assessing, not challenging, but understanding. The initial missions were routine, reconnaissance, support, overwatch, but routine in a combat zone was a dangerous illusion. Each flight was a dance with potential disaster, each mission a negotiation with probability itself. Her first real test came during a night operation in a mountainous region that seemed designed to break both machine and human spirit. The terrain was unforgiving, razor-sharp peaks that could slice through helicopter blades, wind currents that changed with murderous unpredictability. The SEAL team on the ground was led by Ramirez, a veteran who had seen more combat than most soldiers would in multiple lifetimes. Their mission was delicate, intelligence gathering in an area known for insurgent activity. Emma would be their eyes in the sky, their guardian angel with teeth of steel and fire. Communication was an art form. Each radio transmission was coded. Precise, a language that existed between survival and mission success. Emma learned to read not just the words, but the spaces between them. The slight hesitation in a voice. The micro changes in breathing that suggested danger. Her Apache became an extension of the ground team's consciousness. When visibility dropped to near zero, she became their eyes. When terrain became impossible, she became their path. The machine responded to her touch like a living thing, each movement calculated, each decision a split-second negotiation with physics and fate. Ramirez was the first to truly understand her value. During a particularly challenging extraction, her precise targeting and situational awareness saved an entire squad from what seemed like certain destruction. It wasn't just about firepower, it was about understanding. "You're not just covering our backs," he told her one night, sharing a rare moment of downtime in the base's makeshift mess hall. "You're rewriting what it means to protect." The brotherhood of combat was complex. It wasn't about gender or background. It was about the person next to you, the one who would drag you out when everything went to hell. Emma was quickly becoming more than just a pilot. She was becoming family. Her fellow aviators began to see her differently. The initial skepticism, the whispers about a woman in a combat role, dissolved in the face of her performance. She wasn't trying to prove anything. She was simply doing her job with a level of excellence that was undeniable. The Night Stalkers had a saying, "Night Stalkers don't quit." For Emma, it was more than a motto. It was a way of life. Each mission added layers to her understanding. The Apache was more than a weapon. It was a lifeline, a bridge between ground forces and survival. She learned to read the landscape like a living text, understanding not just the physical terrain, but the human geography of conflict. Her relationship with the SEAL team evolved into something profound. They weren't just soldiers sharing a mission. They were a unit, a family forged in the crucible of constant danger. Lieutenant Ramirez became more than a commanding officer. He became a mentor, a brother in arms who saw beyond the traditional boundaries of military hierarchy. "You're changing everything," he told her during a rare moment of reflection. Not by fighting to be included, but by being so damn good that inclusion becomes irrelevant. The mountains watched. The night absorbed their stories. And Emma Rodriguez continued to write her own legend, one mission at a time. Her father's words echoed in her mind. "It's not about the glory. It's about the person next to you. The one who'll drag you out when everything goes to hell." She was becoming that person. More than a pilot. More than a soldier. A guardian. A protector. A force of nature that defied every expectation. The Apache's rotors cut through the night. Emma Rodriguez was ready. Wherever the mission would take her, she would be there. Watching. Protecting. Surviving. 300 hours. The world existed in shades of green and black. Intelligence briefings were never just about information. They were prophecies written in satellite imagery, signal intercepts, and human intelligence that walked the razor's edge between fact and speculation. Emma Rodriguez studied the topographical maps like they were sacred texts, her fingers tracing the contours of mountains that would soon become a battlefield. The mission looked simple on paper. It never was. Lieutenant Mike Ramirez stood at the center of the makeshift briefing room, his body a study in controlled tension. 12 SEAL team members surrounded him, each a condensed universe of specialized training and raw human potential. Maps covered every wall. Digital displays flickered with real-time intelligence feeds, the air thick with the electricity of imminent action. "We've got a high-value target movement," Ramirez began, his voice low and controlled. Local insurgent leadership planning a major supply route reorganization. Our job is reconnaissance and potential interdiction. Emma watched from the back of the room, her mind already mapping potential flight paths, understanding the terrain's brutal geometry. The mountains in this region were more than landscape. They were living, breathing entities that could kill as efficiently as any weapon. The region was a labyrinth of geological complexity. Steep valleys that could swallow helicopters whole. Rock formations that could transform from cover to killing ground in milliseconds. This was not warfare as most understood it. This was a dance with terrain that had claimed countless lives before them. Her Apache was being prepared in a nearby hangar. Each pre-flight check was a ritual of survival. Every bolt, every system, every potential failure point examined with a surgeon's precision. The machine was more than metal and electronics. It was the difference between life and death for the team on the ground. Sergeant Alex Martinez, the team's communications specialist, approached her during a final equipment check. "Got a feeling about this one," he said, his voice a mixture of professional calm and underlying tension. Emma understood. These feelings weren't superstition. They were the accumulated wisdom of soldiers who had survived where others had fallen. The mission parameters were deceptively straightforward. Insert the SEAL team into a high-altitude insertion point. Provide continuous aerial reconnaissance. Be prepared for potential engagement. But simplicity in military operations was always an illusion. Her father's words echoed in her mind. The moment you think you know exactly what's going to happen is the moment you become vulnerable. Satellite imagery told a story of potential movement. Insurgent chatter had increased. Supply routes were shifting. Something was brewing beneath the surface of apparent calm. Lieutenant Ramirez pulled her aside moments before final deployment. "Your job is our eyes," he said. "We need total situational awareness. These mountains, they're not just terrain. They're a living threat." Emma's pre-flight checklist was a symphony of precision. Each system verified. Each potential scenario war-gamed in her mind. The Apache wasn't just a machine. It was an extension of human will. A technological marvel designed to operate in the most unforgiving environments on the planet. The night seemed to hold its breath. Communications equipment crackled to life. Encrypted channels hummed with potential energy. The SEAL team moved with a synchronicity that spoke of countless hours of training. Each member was both an individual and part of a collective organism, capable of moving and responding as a single unit. Her headset came alive with initial check-ins. Ramirez's voice was calm, professional. Nighthawk 1 in position. Awaiting final go. No go. Meteorological reports suggested challenging conditions. Wind speeds at higher altitudes were unpredictable. Temperature variations could create unexpected turbulence. But challenging didn't mean impossible. Not for this team. Not for her. The Apache systems came online like a mechanical predator awakening, targeting computers, communication arrays, weapon systems. Each component checked and double-checked. "Rodriguez, status?" Ramirez's voice cut through the pre-mission tension. "Apache is green across all systems," she responded. Her voice betrayed no emotion, just pure, concentrated focus. The mountain range stretched before them like a sleeping giant. Miles of terrain that had swallowed entire military operations. Terrain that didn't care about mission objectives or human ambitions. It simply existed, waiting. Something felt different about this mission. A subtle electricity in the air. A feeling that existed beyond hard data and mission parameters. Emma Rodriguez took a deep breath. The calm before the storm was always the most dangerous moment, when expectations met reality, when preparation confronted the unknown. The rotors began to spin. The night absorbed their sound. Somewhere in the darkness, A mission was about to begin, and nothing would be the same after. Silence was the first weapon. The mountain seemed to inhale, holding its breath in a moment of perfect, deadly stillness. Lieutenant Mike Ramirez felt it first, a vibration that wasn't sound, wasn't movement, but something deeper. An instinct, carved from years of surviving where others had fallen. Something's not. The words died before they could fully form. Hell erupted from the mountain's very bones. Precision was the hallmark of the ambush. Not random violence, but a choreographed symphony of destruction. The first wave of fire came from 3 distinct positions. High ridge lines that had been carefully selected, camouflaged so perfectly that they seemed to materialize out of the rock itself. Sergeant Alex Martinez took the first hit. One moment. He was moving with the team's standard 2x2 formation. The next, he was thrown backward, his communication gear exploding in a shower of sparks and electronic death. In the Apache high above, Emma Rodriguez saw the world transform in milliseconds. Her targeting systems lit up like a constellation of threat indicators. Multiple hostiles. Coordinated fire. Kill zones precisely mapped to funnel the SEAL team into the most vulnerable terrain. This wasn't an ambush. This was a surgical strike designed to eliminate an entire unit. Nighthawk team, status. Her voice cut through the radio chaos, a lifeline of professional calm. Ramirez's response was fragmented, bursts of static, sounds of returned fire. The brutal language of survival reduced to broken transmissions. Multiple tangos ... ridge line. North and east quadrants. The mountains seemed alive. Each rock became a potential weapon. Each shadow concealed death. Emma's Apache became more than a machine. It became pure tactical computation. Wind speed, terrain elevation, weapon system calibrations, threat vector calculations all processed. In fractions of a second, the insurgents had chosen their ground with surgical precision. A narrow mountain pass that funneled movement. High ground that provided complete fire superiority. Kill zones that left minimal room for tactical response. Ramirez understood immediately. This was not a random encounter. This was a planned elimination. Spread out. He screamed into his communication gear, "Do not bunch up." But tactical training meant nothing against this level of preparation. The SEAL team found themselves trapped in a 3-dimensional kill zone. Vertical terrain that became both cover and threat. Rock formations that seemed to breathe with malevolent intelligence. Emma's voice remained a constant. "I have visual on multiple hostiles, requesting permission for engagement." But engagement wasn't simple. Civilian proximity. Potential collateral damage. The endless ethical calculations that separated professional soldiers from indiscriminate killers. The first Hellfire missile was a statement. Not just a weapon, but a declaration of technological warfare. It struck with such precision that the mountain itself seemed to shudder. Ramirez saw opportunities where others would see only destruction. Rodriguez, Northridge, concentrated fire. Her response was instantaneous. The Apache's chain gun erupted, a technological fury that carved through defensive positions with mathematical precision. But the insurgents were not amateur fighters. Each movement was calculated. Each position had a backup. Each line of fire had been meticulously planned. Bodies fell. Communication systems died. The mountain absorbed violence like a living entity. Sergeant Martinez, wounded but alive, dragged himself behind a rock formation. His training took over where his body was failing. Return fire. Create distraction. Give the team a chance. Ramirez moved with the cold calculation of survival. Every step a potential death sentence. Every movement a negotiation with probability. Itself, "We are not dying here," he muttered. A prayer. A promise. Emma's voice remained their lifeline. I have movement on the eastern ridge, preparing for precision strike. The Apache became more than a machine. It became pure tactical will. Each system synchronized. Each movement a calculated response to a landscape that wanted them dead. Insurgent positions began to crumble under the combined assault, but they had planned for this. Each defensive position had a backup. Each line of retreat was another potential ambush. Time lost meaning. Seconds became lifetimes. The mountain became a living battlefield that consumed strategy, technology, human will. Ramirez knew they were outnumbered, outmaneuvered, but not defeated. Rodriguez, he called into the communication system. We need a miracle. And miracles, in this moment, were measured in milliseconds and millimeters of targeting precision. The mountain watched. The sky held its breath. Survival became a calculation more precise than any weapon system. Emma Rodriguez was ready. The Apache was ready. The mission was far from over. Time fractured, became something else entirely. Emma Rodriguez wasn't just a pilot. In this moment, she was pure tactical consciousness. Her Apache wasn't a machine. It was an extension of human will, technological fury given flight and purpose. The targeting computer became her nervous system. Wind speed, terrain elevation, threat vectors, ammunition counts, all processed in nanoseconds. A symphony of computational precision that danced on the razor's edge between survival and destruction. Nighthawk team, her voice cut through the radio chaos. I'm seeing a kill zone developing. Need immediate tactical adjustment. Lieutenant Ramirez's response was fragmented. Survival had been reduced to its most primitive language bursts of static, breathless commands, the sounds of a team fighting for its very existence. The mountain had become a living weapon. Rock formations that breathed with malevolent intelligence. Terrain that shifted from cover to killing ground with mathematical precision. This was not just an ambush. This was a carefully orchestrated elimination. Emma's hands moved with a precision that transcended human limitation. Each control input was more than a mechanical action. It was a negotiation with physics, with probability, with the very concept of survival. Her first Hellfire missile was a declaration of technological warfare. It struck with such precision that the mountain itself seemed to shudder. Not random destruction surgical intervention. The missile found a precisely calculated point where insurgent defensive positions converged, turning solid rock into a storm of fragmentation and concussive force. Target neutralized, she reported. No emotion. Pure tactical communication. But the insurgents had planned for this. Each defensive position had a backup. Each line of retreat was another potential ambush. They were not amateurs. They were professionals who understood the mathematics of modern warfare. Ramirez's voice crackled through the communication system. Rodriguez, we need a corridor. Give us a way out. Her response was instantaneous. The Apache's chain gun erupted not. Just a weapon, but a technological fury that carved through defensive positions with mathematical precision. Each round was a calculated intervention, creating lanes of potential escape, disrupting the carefully constructed killing ground. The mountain seemed to absorb violence. Rock became shrapnel. Shadows became threat vectors. Sergeant Martinez, wounded but still fighting, understood what was happening. This was no longer just a battle. This was a transformation. Technology. And human will becoming something beyond traditional warfare. Emma's targeting systems were a living entity. Multiple threat indicators. Potential movement patterns. Ammunition expenditure calculations. All processed in fractions of a second. Another Hellfire missile. Another precise intervention. The insurgents had planned for technological superiority. They had not planned for Emma Rodriguez. Her father's. Words echoed in some distant part of her consciousness. It's not about the weapon. It's about the person wielding it. She was becoming something more than a pilot, more than a soldier. She was a tactical consciousness that existed beyond traditional human limitation. The Apache moved with a fluidity that defied mechanical understanding. Each movement a calculated response. Each intervention a precise mathematical equation of survival. Creating escape corridor, she reported. Northeastern ridge, concentrated fire. 30-second window. Ramirez understood immediately. This was more than support. This was salvation. The chain gun created a wall of technological fury, not random destruction. Precise intervention, creating space where moments before there had been only death. Insurgent positions began to crumble, not through brute force, through surgical precision. Time lost meaning. Seconds became lifetimes. The mountain became a computational battlefield that consumed strategy, technology, human will. Emma's computational consciousness expanded. She was no longer just observing the battlefield. She was the battlefield. Wind speed calculations, terrain elevation adjustments, weapon system synchronization, all processed simultaneously, beyond human limitation. Another missile. Another precise intervention. The mountain was learning. The insurgents were adapting. But Emma was always 3 steps ahead. Corridor expanding, she reported. 30-second window becoming 60. Ramirez's response was pure tactical appreciation. Copy that? Moving now. The SEAL team began their extraction. Not a retreat, a tactical readjustment. Emma's Apache became their guardian, their technological angel of deliverance. Each movement calculated, each intervention precise. The difference between survival and elimination measured in milliseconds and millimeters. The mountain watched. The sky held its breath. Emma Rodriguez was more than a pilot now. She was a force of technological will. And the mission was far from over. Silence returned like a wounded animal. The mountain, moments ago a screaming canvas of violence, now breathed with an exhausted stillness. Dust settled. Smoke drifted. The aftermath of battle existed in shades of gray and broken earth. Lieutenant Mike Ramirez moved with the calculated precision of a man who had already died 1,000 times in his mind. Every step was a negotiation. Every breath a victory. Sound off, he called. His voice was a rasp, a command, a prayer. Sergeant Alex Martinez responded first, wounded, bleeding, but alive. Here, sir, he mumbled, applying a combat tourniquet with hands that shook only slightly. Muscle memory overriding shock. Survival. Instinct burning brighter than pain. Emma Rodriguez's voice crackled through the communication system. Nighthawk team, status report. The Apache hung in the sky like a technological guardian, not just a machine, a lifeline. Ramirez did a quick tactical assessment. 3 team members wounded, 2 critically, but all alive. A miracle measured in millimeters and milliseconds. Rodriguez, he called. We need immediate evacuation. 2 critical. Potential internal bleeding. Terrain makes traditional medevac impossible. High above, Emma's computational consciousness shifted. This was no longer a combat mission. This was a rescue operation. The mountain had become their enemy and their salvation. Sergeant Martinez managed a weak laugh. That's one hell of a guardian. Angel, he muttered, looking up at the Apache that had carved their survival from certain destruction. Emma's voice remained calm, professional. Preparing emergency extraction protocol, identifying minimal risk landing zones. The terrain was a nightmare of geological complexity. Steep inclines, unstable rock formations, wind conditions that could transform a rescue into another potential catastrophe. But Emma Rodriguez did not understand the word impossible. Her targeting systems became a life-saving computational network. Terrain analysis, wind speed calculations, potential landing, zone assessments all processed simultaneously. Found potential extraction point, she reported. Northwestern ridge, minimal slope, reasonably stable ground. Approximately 500 meters from current position. Ramirez understood immediately. This was not just a rescue. This was a tactical ballet that would determine whether they lived or died. Martinez, he ordered, prepare wounded for immediate movement. The injured SEALs were no strangers to pain, no strangers to survival. Each movement was a calculated risk, each breath a negotiation with mortality. Emma's Apache began a precision descent, not a traditional landing. A technological intervention that defied conventional understanding of flight. Wind screamed around the aircraft. Rock formations threatened to become deadly obstacles. But Emma's computational consciousness saw beyond physical limitations. Approaching extraction zone, she reported. Prepare for immediate lift. The mountain seemed to hold its breath. Ramirez guided the wounded. Each step a potential death sentence. Each movement a testament to human endurance. Martinez, despite his injuries, provided cover. Weapon ready. Tactical awareness burning bright even through shock and pain. Emma's voice remained their constant. 30 seconds to extraction point. The Apache descended with a precision that seemed to defy physics. Not just a machine. A technological miracle that existed at the intersection of human will and computational precision. Dust erupted. Rock fragments danced. The mountain seemed to exhale. Extraction commencing, Emma reported. The first wounded SEAL was loaded. Then the second. Ramirez's tactical assessment continued. Constant, professional. Martinez, bleeding but functional, was the last to board. Hell of a ride, he muttered to Emma through the communication system. Her response was pure professional calm. Mission. Parameters adjusted. Returning to base. The Apache lifted. Defying gravity. Defying the mountain's attempt to claim them. Ramirez looked at his team. Wounded. Exhausted. But alive. Rodriguez, he called. We owe you. Her response was simple. Just doing my job. But it was more than a job. It was a moment of transformation. A testament to what happened when human will met technological precision. The mountain watched them leave. A witness to survival. The sky absorbed their passage. And Emma Rodriguez continued to fly, guardian, protector, beyond human, beyond machine. The mission was complete. But the story was far from over. The Pentagon hearing room was a cathedral of institutional memory. Marble walls, polished surfaces, the weight of military history hanging in every corner. Emma Rodriguez sat alone at the center table, not as a defendant, not as a supplicant, but as a testament to something larger than herself. Behind her, a multimedia presentation told a story that defied conventional understanding. Satellite imagery, tactical recordings, a moment-by-moment reconstruction of a mission that had become legend. General Catherine Hartley, the highest ranking female combat aviator in military history, studied the report with eyes that had seen generations of warfare transform. She understood something fundamental. Emma Rodriguez was not just a soldier. She was a moment of transformation. Walk me through it again, Hartley requested, not a command, not an interrogation. A request born of genuine professional respect. Emma's recollection was clinical, precise, each word a calculated intervention, just like her actions during the mission. The mission had become more than a tactical success. It was a case study, a redefinition of what was possible in modern combat aviation. Lieutenant Mike Ramirez had already submitted his official report, a document that read like a testament to human endurance and technological precision. each paragraph a carefully constructed narrative that transformed a potentially catastrophic mission into a study of survival. She didn't just save our lives, Ramirez had testified in his written statement. She redefined the entire concept of air support. The media had already begun their narrative. Headlines that spoke of heroism, of technological intervention, of a woman who had stepped beyond traditional boundaries. But Emma Rodriguez was not interested in headlines. Her father's journal, now a cherished artifact, sat in her briefcase. A sane journal that had inspired her childhood dreams. The same pages that had whispered stories of service, of sacrifice, of something larger than individual achievement. The Pentagon hearing was more than an investigation. It was a moment of institutional recognition. General Hartley understood the deeper implications. This was not just about one mission. This was about redefining institutional understanding of combat capabilities. Your intervention created a new tactical paradigm, Hartley noted, her voice a mixture of professional assessment and genuine admiration. Emma's response was measured. I did what was necessary to protect my team, but it was more than necessity. It was a moment of pure, computational human will. The multimedia presentation continued. Tactical recordings showed her Apache's movements, not just as a machine, but as a living, breathing tactical entity that existed at the intersection of human intuition and technological precision. Sergeant Alex Martinez, still recovering from his wounds, had become a vocal advocate. Television interviews, military conferences, each appearance a testament to the mission's complexity. She didn't just save us, he would say. She changed how we understand survival. The military establishment was forced to reckon with a new reality. Combat effectiveness was no longer about traditional metrics. It was about adaptation. About seeing beyond established paradigms. Emma's performance transcended gender discussions. She had not proven herself as good as a man. She had proven herself exceptional. Period. Her Apache was now studied in military academies, not as a piece of equipment, but as a case study of technological and human potential. The hearing continued. Questions became less about investigation and more about understanding. How did you make those calculations? One senior officer asked. Emma's response was simple. I didn't calculate. I understood. It was a profound distinction, not about mathematical precision, but about a deeper, more intuitive comprehension of survival. Her family watched from a distance. Rafael Rodriguez, her father, saw more than a military success. He saw the culmination of generations of service, of sacrifice, of pushing beyond established boundaries. Elena Rodriguez, her mother, saw something else. The manifestation of a dream that had existed long before Emma was born. A dream of service, of protection, of something larger than individual achievement. The hearing would conclude. The reports would be filed, but something fundamental had changed. Military protocol, tactical understanding, the very concept of combat effectiveness, all were being rewritten. And at the center of this transformation sat Emma Rodriguez, not a symbol, not a headline, but a living testament to human potential. As the hearing concluded, General Hartley approached her, not as a superior officer, but as a recognition of something profound. You've changed everything, Hartley said quietly. Emma's response was characteristic, simple, direct. I was just doing my job, but it was more than a job. It was a moment of transformation, a redefinition of possibility. The mountains would remember, the sky would remember, and Emma Rodriguez would continue to fly, to serve, to push beyond every established boundary. Her story was far from over. It was just beginning.